Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and we have a breaking rumor update. Now, as things get closer and closer to the NHL trade deadline, a name that's a longer-term fit for somebody seems to be on the radar. Not necessarily a rental, but a big-name defenseman. We've talked about him for over a year and a half now, almost 2 years. Jakob Chychrun, the defenseman for the Arizona Coyotes. Things are progressing toward a trade to the point where last night he actually was a healthy scratch due to trade protection. They don't want him to get injured, especially with his recent health history. The fact it was a second of a back-to-back. They want to keep him healthy, so he did not suit up last night for the Coyotes, and now that's drawn a lot of speculation as to what is going on here. And at the moment, it didn't sound like anything crazy, but now, here just a day later, Nick Kypreos reports that the Los Angeles Kings are indeed in this conversation. And I think last night they didn't really want to brew too much up. The fact that it was, obviously, congratulations to Dustin Brown on his jersey retirement. I think there was more of a focus toward that. But now that that has passed, it seems like the attention has drawn toward the Coyotes defenseman out in Hollywood. So the report stated a little bit further, not only that the Los Angeles Kings were interested in Jakob Chychrun, but also going the other way, a very, very high-profile prospect of the Los Angeles Kings that, for as long as I've been covering this whole scenario, Brandt Clarke's name has not come out of L.A. until now. And that, again, is from Nick Kypreos earlier this afternoon. Jakob Chychrun, the very good defenseman, a 24-year-old defenseman from Boca Raton, Florida, former 16th overall selection back in 2016 of the Arizona Coyotes. By the end of this season, if he plays out the rest of this year healthy, he will hit 400 games in the National Hockey League with 60 goals, 110 assists for 170 points in almost 400 games. Now, that doesn't sound like that great of a stat, but a lot of that is in his more recent history in the NHL. You look back at this season and the last season, his numbers are a lot better. All things considered with how he's done in his career. This is a guy that can put up points, but is more known for his defensive style of game. With that said, though, he does have 28 points in 36 games as a defenseman. Now, of course, the fact he's only played 36 games this season, again, a lot of that is because of his health history. Fun fact, now, despite even with COVID and all of that, Jakob Chychrun has never played a full 82-game schedule. The longest season he has ever had is the 2019-2020 season, where he played 63 games. That is the longest season for Jakob Chychrun. So, at that rate, you're kind of looking at a spot here where the Coyotes just have not been able to get much going, and specifically with Jakob Chychrun. Now, the fact that Brandt Clarke's name has been thrown out there the other way definitely raises an eyebrow, enough to the point where I have to make a video about this, because I think that Brandt Clarke is a very, very good prospect for the Los Angeles Kings, and was truthfully a guy that I kind of considered untouchable. Now, if the Arizona Coyotes are serious about trading Chychrun, and if the Kings are very serious about trading for Jakob Chychrun, that kind of sounds like the price tag. He was the 8th overall selection by the Kings back in 2021. He's a guy that reminds me a lot of another Barrie Colts defenseman drafted in the OHL in Aaron Ekblad in his prime. So Brandt Clarke is already 20 years old. He's a right-shot defenseman. And I would assume probably in the fall, could be probably going into training camp looking to get a spot on the LA Kings roster, at least at this point. He's already played 9 games for the Kings, but inevitably went back to the Barrie Colts and eventually the Ontario Reign. He played there a little bit, but he has spent most of his season in the OHL with the Barrie Colts. So when you look at a guy here in Brandt Clarke, very talented young defenseman that I am going to guess next season will probably get most of his season in the NHL. If not, definitely playing pro hockey at the American Hockey League level. So either way, Brandt Clarke is on the cusp of becoming an NHL defenseman on an NHL roster consistently. And I think that the expectation here is this is going to be a very good top pairing defenseman in the National Hockey League. So if that's the case, what's the price tag? Because if the LA Kings are really serious, I'm going to assume that first round pick this year has to be in play. First round pick in 2023, Brandt, Clarke, and you're probably throwing in one of your, unfortunately, it's going to be one of the younger guys. Whether I know that the Arizona Coyotes like Gabe Vilardi. I think Vilardi's name would be in the deal. He's an RFA this summer. I think that makes a lot of sense. A former 2017 first-round selection of the Los Angeles Kings. So, the Coyotes who are looking to add down the middle, hopefully they get Connor Bedard and, Adam Fantilli, one of those young centers. Then you bring in a guy like Gabe Vilardi. Those are some pretty good centers, adding to your center depth to play alongside Dylan Guenther and some of those young wingers they've started to draft. Gabe Vilardi is in his fourth season in the National Hockey League with 31 points in 45 games. So this is a very highly regarded prospect. And, is he really a prospect at this point considering he's playing in the NHL? Probably not. But this is a big decision for the LA Kings if they do decide to go down that route. A couple of other interesting forward guys that are on the final years of their entry-level contracts are Rasmus Kupari and Jarrett Anderson-Dolan. One of those three guys will be in the deal as well with Brandt, Clarke. That is, I'm going to say with 99% certainty that if the LA Kings want to trade and make this deal work, it's going to be a highly regarded, an NHL-ready forward and a young up-and-coming defenseman like Brandt, Clarke, and you got to throw in that first-round pick. And that's probably it. That's the good news. So the good news here for the LA Kings is they can keep Quinton Byfield. They can keep some of those younger guys that they have. They have some really good young defensemen on this team. I think there's going to be some questions with what happens with a guy like Mikey Anderson this summer. He's also an RFA. But if they're trading Brandt, Clarke, I don't see them trading Mikey Anderson and Brandt, Clarke in this deal, because let's be honest, the reason that the Kings would be making this trade to acquire Jakob Chychrun is to get an NHL player right now that's ready to come into the NHL, ready to jump into that top four blue line for the Kings, because that is a glaring need for this team. The LA Kings need help on this blue line. They've got a couple of injuries, but honestly, they just are not deep enough on the blue line, and that's why these Chychrun rumors to the LA Kings have been going on for now 6 to 8 months, is because they are so weak, specifically on the left side. Because you look at their defensive group right now, it's Drew Doughty, Matt Waugh, Sean Walker, Sean Dursey, Mikey Anderson, and Alexander Edler. There is a clear need for this in a top four role for Jakob Chychrun to just slot right in there. And unfortunately, Brandt, Clarke is not NHL ready. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where the Kings, they're like, listen, we see ourselves as a playoff team right now. We can make this move. And if we have a guy like Jakob Chychrun, yeah, of course you want to keep Brandt, Clarke, but if we have Jakob Chychrun, that is what Brandt, Clarke was going to be on our lineup. So, okay, yeah, you don't want to, obviously, ideally, you want both of them, right? But if you could add a Chychrun that's ready right now, a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more NHL ready, you take that bet. The only caveat here is the LA Kings are taking a huge risk here. Like I mentioned earlier, Jakob Chychrun's health has been a major concern throughout his NHL career, and one of the reasons a lot of teams have said, I'm out. And one of the reasons they are not willing to give up that major price tag. But the LA Kings are one of those teams. I say the LA Kings, the New York Rangers, the New Jersey Devils, and the Ottawa Senators are the four teams that right now, in terms of prospects and draft pick capital, kind of are leading the way in the National Hockey League. The amount of depth that they have at those positions, defense, forward, draft picks, those teams can make a big splash. And I guess you could include the Montreal Canadiens to a lesser extent. But I think that we are going to see some very interesting action here from the LA Kings, and don't be surprised if we see a deal get done. Now, a lot of people will say Nick Kypreos, not a great source, but he has been right a couple of times here and there, and I'm willing to bet that there is something to this rumor. The fact that he was scratched last night, that the Kings were very quiet about it last night, now all of a sudden we're hearing this the next night. again, a lot going on here, but of course, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the channel to stay up to date with some of these rumors and stuff going on here with Jakob Chychrun and the rest of the trade deadline news here ahead of the deadline on March 3rd. Guys, that is it for today's video. Leave some mock trades down below. Where do you guys think Jakob Chychrun will go? And leave a potential mock trade. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.